It's something I've been meaning to tell you, but I don't have any conclusion. It's just something I want to tell you about. And that is how this whole thug world, Ed, they're able to run these massive ritual harvesting gigs on a macro scale and on a micro scale. At the same time, Ed, as most of the people even involved in it, like actually part of the ritual ops, they themselves are not knowing what's going on. And they themselves have a world view and a life view that doesn't acknowledge or take into account that this is going on. Like most of these people, Ed, who are part of these ops, they think that they're the only ones, and sometimes they know they're not, Ed, but even then, Ed, they're not able to, their life view or their world view doesn't change. It's still exactly what's shown to them on television. And you know how in television serials and everything, they show you how, the people in the show think. And their thinking, Ed, is completely leaving out that there is ritual harvesting, artificial orchestration of events in a person's life. You know, they give you a very watered down version at best of these things. They don't show how organized it is. They don't show why, for example, murders are done. They give you a very false view. And all these people, Ed, who are actually part of these ops, they themselves, Ed, believe that. And the only way, Ed, this is possible is if there's a split consciousness. And I won't even say a split between the subconscious and the conscious, but between consciousness and consciousness. I have me, Ed, for an example. All my life, Ed, I knew what I was going through. I knew, Ed. And at the same time, I had a worldview and a life view that completely did not acknowledge that that was even happening. So it's very strange that, like a person as intelligent as me, and even before I had any mental reasons to reject my own life experience, I was doing it. I always knew what I'm supposed to remember, what I'm supposed to keep in mind, and what I'm not supposed to keep in mind. And perhaps that is how they run this whole gig. When I was in the 7th grade, when I was 11 years old, I was in a boarding school. And that year I kept a personal diary. And in my personal diary, Ed, I wrote about the various attempts to rape me that I went through that year, and the sexual harassment from the guys that worked in the school, Ed, as handy work guys, like the guys who would carry wood around and help in the kitchen and that sort of thing. And I wrote about, Ed, all those things in the diary. And at the end of the year, Ed, the director of that school, he confiscated my diary and he read it. And then he returned it to me and said, "This was all right, but there are some unpleasant things that need to be deleted." You know? And he gave it back to me. And Ed, I knew which were those unpleasant things. Without him telling me which those unpleasant things were, I knew. it was the times that I was sexually assaulted. I knew it. At the time, I didn't know the word sexually assaulted. I didn't know. Ed, how to say it. I just said that this person pressed my breasts, that sort of thing. And then, he tried to make me stay in the hotel room for the night instead of dropping me back to school. So I wrote that. I just wrote the stuff that happened. I didn't even know what it was. But I knew that I had to delete that from the book. So they have such mass consciousness, mass consciousness psychic suggestion that you must not remember certain things or not take them into account in your daily life. And I think that's one of the ways they run this whole gig. And still, Ed, it is still so surprising how they do this. And I want to say, Ed, this is what kind of triggered me into saying all this. That every time, Ed, that I have emerged from a bad situation, it's nearly always, Ed, been that it's because I faced that something was happening that I had not faced was actually happening before. And my question, Ed, was like, if it's suppressed from your brain, right? You don't actually know that it's happening, though you know that it's happening. But if it's suppressed from your conscious mind. So I was like, what was that thing? What is that thing that makes it possible for us to retrieve stuff that we have suppressed back into the conscious brain so that we can face it, so that we can work on it and move forward? And the answer of my spirit, Ed, is that the desire, Ed, to move forward, that is what actually opens the subconscious. And that is why, Ed, it's so important for us to never hang out with people who are comfortable in the abusive situation and the abusive world, Ed, that we are living in. Because every human, Ed, that I know right now is in a situation they do not deserve to be in. They're not happy. They're not happy. We got an inner bliss, Ed, we got an inner bliss of happiness that's always there. But in life, as such, in the places where we humans are going through a very horrible time. And we don't deserve that. We deserve better. And the key, Ed, to that is this release of suppressed memory into the consciousness. And the key to that, Ed, is that we desire to move forward. And the key to that, Ed, is to not hang out with those who make us feel all right and accept the situation as it is. Something that my friend Demon B said, Ed, my darling Demon B, told me recently. He said, you're not attracted to the punishing side of your situation. That's not what keeps you there, of the frequency that you're in. It's the rewards you're addicted to. Because every frequency, which is a state of life, it comes with its punishments and its rewards. It has that cycle. It's an addiction cycle. And what keeps you there is not the punishments. Obviously, that's what's triggering you to leave. But what's holding you is the rewards you're getting. And so Demon B said, if you want to leave a frequency, you should look at which reward it gives you for tolerating the punishment, and might not be as simple or on the surface. But if you ask your spirit to show you, your spirit will show you. And he said that how you deal with these rewards you're getting, this will determine you're leaving the frequency and moving on. Anyhow, that's all I had to say about this.